What's up, Podcast America? Welcome to episode 53 of the Enlightened Neanderthals. Michael Kozak is laughing over there. And before we get into it, let's talk about Training Northwest, my own company, which you can find at trainingnorthwestllc.com. And we are coming up pretty quickly on the Rifleman Camp, which ties in perfectly to what we're talking about today. I think there's still 5 or 6 slots open. So if that's something you've been looking forward to, grab them up while they last. It was an awesome time last year, and we're going to be adding a few things to it this year. We're going to be including some ham radio, and I think I'm going to teach the Aussie Peel, which is great for, it just gets everybody's blood pumping, gets the adrenaline going. You burn through a lot of rounds, you run a lot, you get your heart rate up. It'll be a good time.
Is it an Australian gun tactic?
It's a break contact tactic. I think it was actually developed.
They run?
What?
The Aussies? Is that?
Oh, Lord.
Shouldn't they call it the Frenchman?
You guys will find out. You guys will just have to find out in August. Right. And if you don't know what it is, then maybe look on YouTube. I don't know. But it's a lot of fun. It's a very dynamic exercise. You're breaking contact with a lot of sound and fury. So there's a lot of shooting, a lot of moving, a lot of communicating. Shoot, move, communicate, bitches. I shoot Electric North. Oh, never mind. Go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say, I shoot, communicate, and move, so maybe you can fix me.
Electric North, Pantheon of Podcast. We have Greg and the Endless Endeavor.
Yep.
We have
Will No-Tell and the Patriotic Islander.
We have
Danny Leyland with the White Belt Mafia. And Danny, we'll be doing a collab here soon. We'll be turkey hunting in the next week, but when we get back, we're going to do a cross-contamination of White Belt Mafia. We're gonna force them to drink beer on our podcast. Let's be honest. Yeah. We're gonna take this little white belt and show them what's up. We'll put a stripe on that belt. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's gonna be a stripe, a red stripe,
or we'll submit them, one or the other.
A red stripe,
dude. And then we got Christy Campbell with
Coffee Talk.
Oh, Coffee Talk, yeah.
And our one and only, the Electric North Shaman, Stones and Bones.
Yeah, baby.
Tyler Stanaway and the Compassionate Viking podcast.
Uga Chaka.
And I guess before we go any further, let's say that there's not going to be a podcast next week because as you guys are hearing this, we are balls deep in wild turkey.
Are we going to podcast from the woods?
Yeah.
Let's give a solid maybe on that.
Solid
okay.
maybe. I can go with a solid maybe.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there may be a podcast next Friday or there may not be. You guys just have to tune in and find out. Today's episode, we're talking modern day Minutemen. We had our friend Brent on the podcast.
Wait,
we got all over the place.
Where did we do it from?
We did it from the Eagle's Nest,
That's
Brent's
right.
own recording studio / team room / radio room. All the sound effects. There they are.
It's happening.
I'm not even sure how to summarize this one because we were all over the map.
I think
Mike, this is your specialty.
We did a pretty good job.
Jordan, go ahead.
We hung in there, you know. Yeah. Brent kind of kept us on the straight and narrow here, which was very nice to have.
Our North Light. Yeah.
Exactly.
It
was beautiful. So, yeah, go ahead, Mike. What were we talking about?
I think we should just sign off and start the show.
All right. Well,
sign off. Start the show.
Listen up.
All right, guys, here we are. We're at the Eagle's Nest, our friend Brent's house. This is quite the setup. Jordan and I were looking around in here while you guys were outside doing whatever you were doing, hiding in the closet together, swapping T-shirts. This has team room in Iraq vibes. And I was saying that if that wall were covered in plywood cubbies for everybody's individual gear, we've got like the planning board, the radio base stations and desk over there, and then the little kitchenette back here in this corner. And it's like, this is how our team rooms looked.
Yeah. Team rooms in Washington vibes. That's what it feels like to me.
The Eagle's Nest.
But anyway, we came in here today with a theme that we want to talk about, which is the modern day Minuteman, and it feels like it's coming close to when it might be appropriate again, like crime just continues to sort of spiral out of control, and the police are, they're frustrated and hamstrung, and our lawmakers just continue to allow street level thug style crime while it's almost like they just pretend it doesn't exist. It's a weird, it has to be intentional. But I think that anyone who's a man and who understands their sort of inherent duty to protect their family and their loved ones, and then an extension of that, their community, it's one of the reasons I'm starting to get a lot of customers out at Training Northwest, and this, like, companies like Fieldcraft Survival is huge. There's a few others if I thought about it, but it's because people are starting to realize that the system is cracking a little bit. And so we wanted to have, was this your idea, Jordan, or was this Mike's?
Sure.
This is not mine. This was your guys'.
This is Jordan. Well, maybe.
It's going to be a great one, guys.
Yeah. But anyway, we wanted to talk about what it takes to be a modern day Minuteman, and what the Minutemen was during the American Revolution, and actually before, even when the colonists were living on what was then the frontier on the East Coast and constantly being threatened by the various native tribes there. They set up, they had their own little, basically a community defense force. And the men had to be ready to go at a minute's notice, because you don't know when a raid from the Indians was going to come. Mm-hmm. So their equipment had to be packed and ready. Their, like the old Robert Rogers rules of ranging, their powder had to be dry, the hatchet scoured, ball, what was it, 13 rounds or 30 rounds of ball ready to go.
Yeah, I think it was something like that.
Yeah, basically all your equipment ready. And as an extension of that, what I don't think gets talked about today, and we'll get into this in a bit, is just having equipment is only part of it. Being trained is obviously part of that. Like, as an extension of the equipment, you need to know how to use it, but then you also need to be physically fit, and I think spiritually centered, because you need to understand that this is a dangerous game. When that time comes, when you need to grab your rifle and go, now you're playing games of life and death. Yeah. And if you haven't figured out your own sort of feelings on the hereafter, whether that's atheism or Christianity or Islam or whatever it is, some woo-woo stuff like myself.
Divine Matrix.
Like me and Mike, me and Kozak. And if you haven't sort of come to peace with your ideas on that, it's going to be really hard for you to enter a fatal fight.
Well, I think you guys are a little bit more into this than I am, I would say. Like, if it was pre-2020, it's like with hunting and things like that, I've always kind of been in the mindset that, things can go wrong. You should have an established cachet of, food, some water, some things to survive. But what you were kind of hinting at earlier with the thin blue line is, once we kind of went through 2020, the thin veil of polite society is honestly that. It's everyone kind of gets along because it's what the standard is. This is how you should act in front of people. And in 2020, we really got to see what people were like when they got pushed like an animal in the corner, and how they start to react. And it made me think a lot more of just how fragile this experiment of America is, and having a culture of cohesiveness. And so for me, when I think of the modern day Minuteman, I'm thinking, what do I need to kind of get by for maybe the next couple months, or to respond to an incident if the pillars of society start to crumble and things start to break down a little?
Yeah, and let's not talk too much about like the prepping type of stuff. I think we should talk specifically response.
Yeah.
If you are someone who wants to fancy yourself a community defender, or just a defender of your lifestyle, like
that's
this,
it.
That's the other thing. Is this our style of life here in America is very much under attack right now by the radical left and sort of this WEF, WHO, globalist kind of cabal. Yeah. So I really think that in the next couple of years, we're going to see their big attempt. It's kind of like, hey, the veil is off. It's make it or break it time. So they're going to have to make their big push. And in my mind, it is 50-50 whether the average American will stand up and resist, or just kind of go, oh, well, okay, this is what they want us to do now. Because COVID sort of showed, sorry, Jordan, COVID sort of showed that it really wasn't that hard of a push. It was more of a nudge. It was like a psychological nudge, and people fucking folded.
And they went to the side that they thought was going to win.
Yes.
Very quickly.
Yes.
We are skipping past so many big points.
Have you listened to our show before?
Of course. I've been on it a couple times. I'm on now. But there's so many things that we can unpack a little deeper that even lead us to where you guys have already kind of jumped forward, talking about the government systems and what people in authority are trying to do, talking about the nature of mankind and what human nature is. I mean, let's just hit on that real quick. Even a lot of people there's different ways that people think about the nature of man, right? Is man inherently good, and anything that's negative and bad is just because of the product of environment? Is man neutral in his nature of good and evil, and totally a product of their environment? If were raised good and have experienced good things, they're going to be good. And if they've experienced negative and bad things and been abused or whatever, they're going to have a negative outcome. Or is it what I believe, a biblical view, which is the nature of man, that we have a sin nature, and that man's inherently evil inside because of that sin nature that we inherit all the way back from the Garden of Eden, right? And Adam, okay, and that's my personal belief. And so if you hold to that biblical view of that, of the nature of man, and that we have this inherent bent towards evil, that's when you kind of see, talking about the thin blue line, the thread of, hey, if you don't behave, if you don't do the right thing, you're going to get in trouble. And we put together, people in history have said, well, we don't like the fact that these guys came and robbed us. So, we were shooting them, but now we need somebody that's going to come and guard our properties as a community. So what do? Form a police force, right? Form somebody that they're going to pay to enforce the rules and the laws, right? And so that's all kind of, in my opinion, comes out of that, the fact that if we don't have that thread of, I'm going to get in trouble, right? I'm going to get a ticket, so I better drive the speed limit. So that's just one way to think of it. I don't know what your guys' thoughts on that are as far as the nature of man, but
I think Mike and I believe that in the divine matrix,
get out of here. Get out of here.
So hang on. I do believe that balance is required for existence to even be possible. Like, if the sun were always directly overhead, we would never be able to explain what darkness is. We wouldn't even have a conception of it because it would never enter our reality. So I think that for good men and women to exist, evil men and women also have to exist. And the two can intermix pretty well if there's sort of like, again, that's that what you describe as the thin blue line. It's that agreed upon set of rules. And I also think that's what major religions are. It's just an agreed upon set of rules for a society.
Well, that's when somebody who's good, I believe is good, is completely evil to somebody else.
I've thought about that too. But I think that
that's a good point.
I think it's more that the evil side has people who are charismatic and have strong leadership capabilities as well. And even if they don't, you're right, they probably don't consider themselves evil. They just think of deviant
they look
ideas
at us as
like
evil.
I don't know.
You thinking like barbecue down in Haiti?
Yeah.
That guy barbecue. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. No, I don't.
There's a leader. You know who that is?
No.
He's the guy that basically brought together all the gangs in Haiti and they're basically killing and maiming and raping and
right. But do you
over.
think he thinks of himself as a force for good, or do you think he thinks of himself as someone who's willing to go to extremes to get wealthy?
Probably not a force of good.
That's okay. So that's what I'm saying. So you require, in order to have good men and women, you have to have evil men and women. Because otherwise the two concepts couldn't exist, because you wouldn't be able to, human beings, in order for reality, we have to have contrast.
But Hitler thought he was doing the right thing. In his eyes, eliminating Jews was creating a stronger Germany.
Yeah.
Like if World War II on Hitler's side,
I don't know that he thought that massacring millions of people was going to.
It's strengthening.
Do you think he thought it was a necessary evil?
Yes.
Okay, then that's him doing something evil. That's him understanding he's taking evil upon.
No, but he thought Jews were evil. He thought they were plague-ridden, that they were taking money.
He was also super high on meth.
Yes, but that mindset, though, is he was doing this for the German people, for the Aryan race, right?
Do you think that's what's called a necessary evil, where in his mind he's taking evil upon himself in order to improve his people's position?
I think people do whatever they do because of the people around them. Like, people will do all kinds of things in this world, but they'll say it's good to benefit the people around them. And when you're saying I'm doing this for the betterment of others, things can get very murky. Our government said we're shutting everything down. How about dropping an
atomic bomb on Nagasaki? Right. So were we good when we did that, or were we evil? Did we take what we called necessary evil to prevent what we thought of as a worse outcome?
I think we were just doing what we thought was best to protect our people. You take that in a macro and a micro, and I think it's very scalable.
Yeah. Well, I agree that I'm right.
Well, and like I say, and we can go back and forth. A lot of these things have been debated since the dawn of time, correct? And even like somebody like Hitler, from a spiritual perspective, from a biblical perspective, was this guy possessed? Was he inspired by spiritual forces of evil, which in Christianity is, the devil, right? And according to the Bible, there's all kinds of different, you can go deep and that's all different debatable topics that people have as far as what they believe spiritually and stuff and what inspires him.
I think we should keep going. I didn't mean to derail it. Sorry, Mike. I like God talk and I like philosophy talk.
But those things, like say, we're not going to solve those problems, but what we can do is
I don't know. Give us an hour and a half.
But we can take those concepts from different points of view, and then we can say, well, how do we, as Americans, and that's the thing, right? Is like, some people, and you see this nowadays, people look at Trump, for example, and people on the left, progressives, and the people, the liberals, the people that they buy all into that full ideology of the left, right? Orange man bad, Trump's evil. Right. And what do they say in their mind? They say, oh, this guy's literally Hitler, and he's going to come in and he's going to do all these bad things and horrible things, right? Is he going to do that? In my opinion, I'm thinking he's doing great things. So I think that people can, we need to be able to, as Americans and as a liberty-loving, freedom-loving people, exist together and have the freedom to have our own opinions on what we believe is right and wrong. And to me, that's the power of America, is that I can believe in God.
Well, not only that, the fact that we can discuss it openly on a microphone and then broadcast it on the internet for other people to listen to, and there's no problem with that. Nobody's going to come kick in our doors tonight. Exactly.
And we can have different opinions, and we can talk about them, and we can still care about each other and love each other, and that's the power of America. But you look at it right now, they're trying to separate us and divide us.
Yes.
Black against white, immigrant against, patriot or whatever, left against right. That's what they're trying to do, because as long as we're fighting amongst ourselves, we're not watching those crooked bastards and what they're doing. Right. And they're up there taking bribes and building their bunkers inside of mountains and building $1 million, survival retreats in Hawaii. Right.
Buying sea level property while they tell you that the oceans are rising. I kind of came to the same opinion. It's not the first time.
Sorry about my language, by the way.
Oh, yeah. I think your neighbor wants to come in. He's peeking through the window. Should we pause it?
Special guest?
Yes, we'll pause.
Oh, we're coming back with intro music. You better believe.
And we're back in the Eagle's Nest.
Yeah.
After rescuing our neighbor.
Yeah.
Next door. And that's a great point, actually. It's like you need to, we've talked about it before. You guys have talked about it. You need to get to know your neighbors. You need to build your area of operations, right? And as far as your area study goes, you need to know the people around you, because when stuff goes south, and if you're going to bug in, if you don't know your neighbors, right, and you want to try to set up a roadblock or try to do some stuff to bring security to your neighborhood, and you're going to get downvoted.
Yeah. But if you can't borrow a couple eggs from your neighbor, you think they're going to help set up a perimeter?
Exactly. And so, my neighbor came over, he had his lawnmower stuck out in the mud, and the guys all ran down there in the muddy field and got their socks all soaking wet and pulled the tractor out. But
I knew when I saw Jordan put his Crocs into 4x4 mode that this was
going to be operation.
This is going to be a victorious
flip
operation.
The little back thing up.
Nice. Oh yeah.
As soon as I saw that, I put my hat on backwards.
We're getting high speed, boys.
But that's what the Minutemen were. Is they were an elite group.
Yeah. What the hell were we talking about?
Yeah, the Minutemen. Well, and I want to go back a little bit too, like for people that maybe don't. Some of the history you talked about it, but I was doing some reading on it, and so people think about the militia versus the Minutemen, but the Minutemen actually, I was surprised to figure out that they were pulled out of, they were like an elite group pulled out of the militia, and so they were selected by their commanding officers, and they were guys that were more capable, more enthusiastic, and ready to go. So that's the kind of people you want to be. You want to be somebody that other people will call on to they know that, hey, they can count on you to be the one that'll step up and get something done. So
do you think the desire to be that person is waning amongst young men in America?
Oh, dude.
Because when we were kids, we all wanted to be cowboys and sheriffs and fucking astronauts and
firefighters.
Stuff. Yeah. And now my kids are like, well, I want to be a YouTuber. It's like, oh, God.
And you see it every day, right? How many times do you see somebody getting attacked on a subway or a knife stabbing or whatever? And what do people do? They pull out their cell phones, or they stand back and watch while somebody's getting beaten or attacked.
Yeah. I saw it just the other day. I was down in Seattle, and there was I stopped by a bakery because I'm fat. And
PHAT.
Yeah, that's right. And And there was these guys, or there's probably three grown men in this bakery, and there's a homeless guy in there, and he's kind of causing an issue, and he's starting to set stuff all over, and you can tell he's like irritating her. I mean, he's getting aggravated.
And they're all staring at the floor and try to pretend like
he's
this is
disrupting society.
Yeah, and there's this 5'2" lady who's like 100 pounds, and she's like trying to deal with them, and nobody wanted to do anything about it. So I let it go on for a second, and then I was like, you know what? I'm going to do something about this. Mm-hmm. So I grabbed him, and I wheeled him out of there.
Was he in a wheelchair, or was he sitting in a rolling chair?
Yeah, he was in a wheelchair.
Oh, nice.
That's the joke, but yeah, it did happen. But I mean, it was kind of
I wouldn't be surprised.
As soon as we got outside, he put his foot down and got real. All of a sudden, I couldn't move him, and he was like, "Oh, dang!"
He set the brake.
Yeah,
click.
Yeah, it was just he. Nobody wanted to do anything about it. So yeah, it is happening, and it's not the kids, it's the men.
The 40-year-old men like us.
Well, and here's something to think about too. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
The other day I was at the fire station, and there was a sergeant came over from getting them. They use our little water bottle filler, right? And we started chatting with him. And
sorry, a sergeant from where?
The police department.
Okay,
yeah,
sorry,
police
I missed it.
Yeah, fire station, police station. They have a little room off of ours. They're kind of connected. And we were talking to him about crime and a bunch of other stuff, but he was talking about the fact that not only we're talking about people don't want to get involved, but he's saying that even when people are victims of crime, they won't press charges. Like they'll have somebody that steals, like breaks into their car or steals their car, and they'll be like, "Hey, we recovered your car. We caught the guy. Can you press charges?" And the people will be like, "Oh, well, I don't really want him to get in trouble. I know he's probably addicted to drugs. I just want him to get help." And he's like, and then they just let him go, and they just go out and continue to victimize. Like they think the police are going to be able to, can you do something to help him? Because
here's the other thing. Even if they do press charges, chances are the prosecutors are going to let him out anyway.
Well, he exactly said that.
You make the point that gets missed there is we kind of need elected officials to listen to that. The part where the people are saying, we understand there's a drug addiction problem and we need to do something to help them. And this takes us all the way back to our dictator for a day, where the drug opiate problem is so just over the top right now. Care needs to become compulsory, where if you get picked up on the street, you're going into a FEMA style camp, like non-voluntary. And we don't have to give people a criminal record, but they need to be forced into some sort of a camp where they get clean and get detoxed. And then they're going to need to go through a system that gets them sort of rehabilitated to come back into society. And you can do that without a criminal record while making it obligatory.
You want to know the interesting thing, though?
Go ahead.
Most rehab programs, like Alcoholics Anonymous and some of these other programs, they're faith-based programs.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have the first step is that, believing in a higher power. Now they can tell you the doorknob can be your higher power. It doesn't have to be Jesus or God or Allah or Buddha, whatever. It could be whatever you want it to be. But it's interesting because if somebody doesn't want help, if they don't want to change, you can't force them to change. And see, that's right. So then you get to locking people up, right? You lock people up in a prison or a jail, and guess what? They're sober. Well, unless they're getting something snuck in the prison wallet. Right?
Yeah, that's true.
But you know what I'm saying?
Opens up, like building the FEMA style camp opens up a huge black market.
Exactly. But it's tough.
But at least you put them inside that camp where they're not on our streets. And think about what downtown Seattle used to look like with all the restaurants and bars and everything was sort
wonderful.
of alive.
We had so much fun.
And now
down there.
everything's getting boarded up because nobody can run a successful business with people like squatting and shooting heroin in their fucking like door stoop.
Even downtown Everett.
Yeah.
Downtown Everett, I got a friend of mine that has a business down there, and he's talking about, he goes, I try to bring people down here to show them my venue. It's like a event venue where they do weddings and stuff and a restaurant.
Who the fuck wants to get married down there?
They come down there, and there's a homeless guy who was spread out across the sidewalk in front of the place, you know? And he's like, he's trying to show people his beautiful venue. And yeah. And then you drive down there, and there's
some of the stories,
blocks of boarded up businesses downtown.
And you hear people like a barber in Seattle who had to shovel human shit out of his doorstep every day to open a shop. It's like, dude, what the fuck? What is our government doing with our money if they're not taking care of the most in our face problem? Which I don't want to go down the rabbit hole.
I know, now we're going.
Yeah. That's an episode in itself.
Modern Minuteman.
But you're hitting on an interesting point, which is the mentality of the normal citizen. Like you're saying that donut shop example, when someone's laying stuff out and they're like, oh, we'll just put all of this to do on this little 120-pound girl. I think as societies and civilizations get more complex, duties are allocated to others, so you don't have to do them yourself. If you think of like the West back in the day, and there was a posse of people that was causing ruckus, yes, you would have the sheriff, but you would have a lot of townsfolk get together and try and mitigate the crime.
You had to establish law and order for yourself.
Yeah, going back to what we talked about at the beginning of the show, right? The people got together and built a police
has
force,
gotten so top heavy.
But not
because
overly.
Everybody has given away their sovereignty. Like, hey, you handle this problem, you handle this problem, you handle this problem, and at the end of the day, what that makes people is incompetent because they've given away. They've basically outsourced all their problem solving.
The problem,
and in doing so, they've made themselves very incapable of problem solving.
The moral compass of society is decaying, and it's not. You can't be strong without having morals. Mm-hmm. You can't if you don't have faith in a higher power that kind of tells you your moral compass or code or whatever you want to live by. If you don't have that and think about that and establish that, then you're never going to be strong enough to go, I'm doing the right thing by getting involved with this situation. So I'm going to just stand by and watch things happen and unfold because I don't have the courage, because I don't have the morals to step up and do what I believe is right because I don't think like that. And that is decaying from society more and more and more. And that's why you're seeing more people just be bystanders as opposed to saying, I know what's right and I'm going to go do what's right, because they don't know anymore, because things have been allowed to just deteriorate over time. And with that, we're running into these 40, 50, 25-year-old guys that aren't able, or not that they're not capable of doing it, because it doesn't take any kind of strength to stand up to somebody like that physically. I mean, you at some point it's gonna, right? But to have the courage to do it comes from a moral-based thing. Yeah. And without having 100%. That, you're not gonna. That's the first and
understanding
foremost.
Your line in the sand, and knowing that when you've been backed up against it, now you either have to sacrifice sort of yourself or stand up. Like,
I'm not going
to
heels
against the line, and we're not going another inch backwards.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I think society is lacking right now. Yep. As far as that kind of thing, because if everybody wasn't going to put up with it and everybody was on the same page,
it'd already be over.
The problem is everybody seems to be so caught up in tolerance, and my I don't want to be intolerant of this because I don't know what these other people.
And all of it literally comes from fear of being called bad names on social media. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean it definitely.
That's what it comes down to.
But it also comes down to you're going to lose your job. It comes down to if you do that and they disagree with you, you're going. It's gone past. Yeah, that it comes into the financially, they're going to hit me in my pocket,
your livelihood,
right? And that's why you can see laws that get put into place, and people, when there's certain laws that are in place, I don't agree with, and I don't abide by, because I don't think they're moral. So, I'm not going to say like that line on the road is there and I can't cross it. It's like I'm not going to let that piece of paint tell me what to do. Yeah. If it's safe. And nobody is around this stop sign at, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning.
Stop and wait for the red light.
Am I going to stop?
You can see miles in either direction.
Yeah. What do you do? Are you going to sit there or are you going to just go? Yeah. And at some point, guess what? I'm just going to go because I know I'm not doing anything.
That comes down to the spirit of the law, right? And what was the law? Laws are made because of law breakers, and they have to bring, Yeah.
But that's the morals, right? That's exactly. Where you have to have your moral stance.
Yeah. Well, and what was that? What's the quote by one of our founding fathers that talked about that? The free society that we have, the free country that we have, is only if you only have you have to have a moral people, in order to have the freedoms.
Freedom requires responsibility and morality.
Yeah, exactly. And if people, you look at this free country, right, and it's like you can go where you want, do what you want. Well, if evil people come in, right? They start saying, hey, wait a minute, we can do whatever we want here. They're not going to stop me at the door of the supermarket. I can just grab these steaks and walk right out.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
And I kind of have come to this idea that along with that, you know, the concept of balance and contrast, that while we do have as many good people here as we do evil people, we're more dissociated because we all seem to sort of have these libertarian ideas. Not that libertarians are the only good people, but we have the notion that if someone's not doing anything wrong, we should just kind of leave them alone, let them be happy to do what it is that they do. And
well, if it's not affecting somebody in a
the people that seem to turn toward evil kind of, they're not coordinated, but they all seem to have sort of like a little wink, wink, nod, nod, like, hey, we're all doing, if we all push these limits, then the limits keep sliding. And if we all just keep pushing, then we can just keep, you know, shoving the boundary backwards.
Yeah. Well, and good hardworking people, they mind their own business. They're busy with families and their jobs and their lives. And so it takes a lot more to push somebody, a good man or woman, to act than it does somebody that's, you know, doesn't have anything to do and all they can just go down to the protest all day. Meanwhile, we're at work, you know, and they're down there standing in a freeway saying free Gaza, right?
Do you think that's a case of they act in self-interest as opposed to when you try to act in community interest, it requires...
They find a community.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, and that's part of the thing, right?
But it does seem like it's all self-interested. Like it's a lot of it is just for social clout.
Yeah.
Well, and I believe that we were created by our Creator to have a purpose in life. Like we are created for a reason, right? And so finding that purpose in life is important. If somebody doesn't have, you know, like for me, I believe in God and I believe this Creator, this amazing God wants to have a relationship with me, and I can have that through faith in Jesus Christ. I can be forgiven of my sins, and I can have interaction with the Creator of the universe. Like that's my purpose in life is, okay, now what do you want me to do? And he says, hey, spread my love, tell people how much I love them and that I want to have a relationship with everybody. Cool. That gives me purpose in life. If somebody doesn't have a purpose, they're looking for something, right? And so then they'll latch on to, oh, what is this? What's my purpose in life? You know, and if they latch on to BLM or if they latch on to, you know, cops are evil or capitalism's bad, you know, that, you know, they try to find purpose.
Well, I think it's like anything. You can take something as nice as religion and it's like, well, you can go extreme. Look at Waco, you know, look at any cult in the past.
What were they doing to hurt people?
Well, the guy was David Koresh was screwing everyone's wife.
Right. But who did he hurt?
They were there by choice.
The husbands? Are you kidding me?
No. And a cult is a cult, right?
But
that's the thing.
And the BLM is a good, if it was what they said it was, and
ATF
it seems
is gay.
They pocketed, a lot of cash. But it's like, yes, we had the civil rights. You think George Floyd was bad, but like in the 60s, the civil rights riots were the whole country, just like BLM. But you established what our founding doctrine was that everyone was created equal, that it didn't matter what your skin color was, a black person and a white person were equally the same. You know, they were the exact same thing. And so you can take something and you can go overboard no matter what. Yeah. And
are the exact same thing. Did you hear what he said? Past tense. This guy.
Actually, no. We're the exact same thing because now we're back to apartheid on small levels, and we're back to we're separating, segregating society again.
Yeah. Well, let's try and focus back into
modern day
Minuteman
because we got into the weeds on spirituality.
Yeah, but this is why it's important to be the modern day Minuteman now. And if everything was candy canes and hunky dory, there would be no reason to talk about this.
And working out your own personal ideas on all this philosophical stuff is important to finding that spiritual center. So that when the moment comes that you need to put yourself in harm's way, you're ready.
Yep. Yeah. Willing to step up with your morals.
Yep.
I thought music was coming. I was getting drum.
Sorry. You want music?
Yeah.
We got it. In the Eagle's Nest.
Woo!
We're back.
The Minutemen are back.
Yeah, so like as all that kind of boils down, we have the moral code and the belief system that everybody can can unite under, and it doesn't necessarily have to, their faiths, I don't believe, have to match, but having a common goal and a common fight is important. And I think everybody, at some point in time, the U.S. was that. Everybody stood up, pledged to the flag, and we were all united under one flag. And as that kind of decays in this country, we're seeing more and more issues, right? And there are groups of people that still believe that, and it hasn't changed, and want to fight for the ability for everybody to be able to do what they want to do within this country, whether it be, being gay or, believing your faith or whatever it is, as long as you're doing it in a way that isn't hindering somebody else's forward progress in life. I think that's basically everybody wants to love their family, and everybody wants to go home and be happy.
I agree with what you're saying about there are a lot of people who are willing to stand up for that, and they're all kind of wondering what they're going to need to do, because they can feel the tension rising, and they're upset about the way the middle class and the lower class are being treated in this country. And it's almost like everybody knows it's going to pop off, but nobody knows what to do when it does. And that's I guess that's why we're talking about the modern day Minuteman, because being ready for community defense isn't the end all be all. But in order to have a community left, there's going to have to be a breakdown and then some sort of bottoming out and then a rebuilding, right? Yeah. And throughout that breakdown and bottoming out, you need to be able to protect your family and your community. And so that brings us into the necessity of men who are willing to step up into that role, and what the abilities you need to have. Again, there's equipment, there's knowledge and training, there's morality and a moral code, and then the ability...
physicality.
The physicality and the ability to bring all those things. The physicality is the ability to bring all of those things to bear. Yeah. So Jordan's been dying. Should we get into gear? Things you need to possess? Because Mike, we agree that we want a bolt action 308, right?
Dude, no, I want to live. So you're on your own without bolt action.
Yeah. Aside from the obvious, like a rifle and the ammunition and first aid material.
Well, this is what I think differs from the Minuteman of old to now is
there's more specified gear, whereas the Minutemen of old, they were using their hunting equipment, right?
Yeah, they were. I mean, and it's not just that these days. Like, there's so much technology that has come about, and it's so vast. I mean, from night vision, thermal to drones and motorcycles, and how to move, shoot, and communicate is not just that. It is so vast. And
shoot, move, communicate.
Shoot, move, communicate. I like to talk and let people know where I'm going first, and then I start moving.
This is kind of cool. This is out of a Patriot's history of the United States, and they said they were supposed to hold themselves in readiness at a minute's warning, complete with arms and ammunition. That is to say, a good and sufficient firelock, bayonet, 30 rounds of powder and ball, pouch, and a knapsack.
Yeah.
And now
where do you draw the line? Do you need a $7,000 set of night vision? You know what I mean? Do you need a $14,000 thermal?
See, I have this same problem with hunting, though. It's like when I first started hunting, and I started hunting late in my life, I grew up fishing and crabbing, but I never hunted. I didn't start hunting until I was in my 30s. And when I started hunting, you would go to Cabela's, you would watch Meat Eater, you would see all these videos, and it's like, well, you need this carbon fiber stand to hold your $3,000 spotting scope. And then once you get all that, well, you can't just have any rifle. You need this rifle with this scope. And your clothes aren't good enough. You need this jacket that costs $400 instead of...
But that's this consumer society.
See, but that's what I think... But yes, because all technology increases, whether it's the optics, the electronics, the actual clothes you put on your body, everything's advancing. What matters are the skills you possess and having the base level necessity.
Being in possession of night vision and thermal is a distinct combat force multiplier on the battlefield. So this is not equatable to having the latest and greatest
but
Cortex.
That would be if you had two conventional armies for the most part fighting. When you have guerrilla warfare, or if you have a Minuteman type where you're like, the police don't have night vision. Yeah. They have a little bit of...
they don't.
Oh, they got thermals, yeah. There's helicopters flying over.
Yeah, but that's helicopter.
Quit fighting. Quit fighting.
But, I mean, for like the most of... If you have a situation, what you do is you call in backup and you start forming a grid and you go through an area looking for
bring in the canines.
Yeah. So what that stuff is usually, though, it's a firearm, it's manpower, and it's communication. And I think it's so easy to get lost in the weeds, but when you focus, once again, go to the fundamentals, I think that's something that, and I've been redoing my bags and my gear and what.
Well, what we're back to then is community and a group, and having a team of people that have trained together so they understand sort of the way they have a set way of operating, what we used to call TTP, which was like training tactics and procedures. Having that sort of shared understanding of what your TTPs are. Doesn't have to be the perfect tactics. It just has to be ones that everybody understands, and that requires a high level of coordination and a lot of time commitment. And what a lot of people think right now is they've got their equipment, they've got their $10,000 worth of plate carrier and helmet and the rifle, and they're ready. And okay, name your 4-man team? Yeah. Can't do it. Yeah. Let alone name your 30-man security element.
What's your comms pace plan?
Yeah, 4 people can't secure jack and shit. Right, because two need to sleep and eat and go to the bathroom. Now you're down to 2 guys. Yeah. So to actually and to defend like a community, you're talking about you need several thousand people in the community so that several hundred can be on security duty. Yeah.
But to keep on this idea of gear, so I used to, like I said, when I started hunting, I got overwhelmed with that. And it's kind of starting to get into this stuff. Like you guys were saying, like the new Minuteman needs night vision. He needs all this stuff, which don't get me wrong, it would be nice to have technologies like that or tools that you can use to enhance your capabilities. But I think there are some just basic essentials.
Yeah, a rifle and the willingness to use it.
Yes.
But what I'm simply saying is in today's world, technology has become such the force multiplier of night vision, of drones and video footage that you can make from that, or just being able to get your comms out like that. It's unprecedented times, right? And we're seeing it in the war in Ukraine that commercial available drone is doing significant damage.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. Is that a cheap Amazon drone with a cheap hand grenade on it is pretty well making the human soldier obsolete, because you can't take cover behind anything. It just flies up over the top or around behind it, and it pursues you until it runs out of batteries or until you're tired and fall down.
But isn't Ukraine still conventional war for the most part?
It's trench warfare.
Yes,
but
one side's here, one side's here.
Oh, I'll tell you one thing: they're wishing they spent a little more time skeet shooting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm not saying it's an unconventional war. I'm saying that human soldiers are becoming obsolete very quickly, because when you can just kill the humans with $120 worth of drone and hand grenade.
But I go back to where I think, like, if the situation called for where our streets around us are chaos and we have to use these tools and these skills that we have, yes, maybe the government and certain heavy players have these tools, but eventually, if everything
not everybody has it. Not everybody has it.
It will run out within a couple months.
You're right. Eventually. So let's talk about specifically defending a small area, say like an HOA or a family homestead type of a place. And so again, we're down to we know we need rifle and ammunition, medical, first aid gear.
What's the threat? I guess that's the first thing, right?
Societal breakdown.
Yeah.
Just so people who are people who have reached desperation.
Threat model and use case, right?
Yeah, people who have reached desperation and are basically raiding the countryside or the
big giant apartment complex down by the freeway, and they've raided all the grocery stores, and now some guy he's rounded up 30 or 40 of his neighbors and said,
yes.
Those people down the road.
Having been to the third world, like to third world countries, when that type of scenario arises, what happens is warlords quickly arise because there are evil people who also have really good leadership capabilities.
That's exactly right.
And other people always gravitate toward leadership. Yep. And once you have a strong leader and you have some people who are desperate and they're saying, hey, let's roll out. Let's go find, let's head out into the suburbs.
Those people out there in the country, they got plenty of food.
Exactly.
They've got farms. They're hoarding.
Right.
See the lights on in their house? You hear the generator?
Yep. So there's your scenario. And in order to defend some small acreage like an HOA, like a homestead, again, rifles, ammunition, medical, and then I don't think you should poo-poo night vision and thermal. It's more a question of, is it in your budget? Because that ability to see in the dark, again, is a huge force multiplier, especially when you're playing defense. And
on the night.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you start getting into bigger issues too, because then you start getting into area studies, right? How important is it to have an area study? Because you got to know, hey, what am I going to defend? So if you're one man with your Minuteman kit in your house, you have to defend your property, then you have to defend the exterior of your home, then now you've got to defend inside your home. But who's going to guard that outside? So then how far out do you spread your defense? And that's where coming into an area study is. We did some training a while back, and the one thing that's important is, you look at like Mike Shelby with Forward Observer. He's really big on area studies, right? And so he talks about your first area is your area of operations. So that's the area where you're normally going to be in, the homes around you, your neighborhood somewhat, right? And you got to kind of look at, what can I defend? So me, personally, I've looked, and there's the street out in front of my house. If I go down to the end of that street, I can set a roadblock there. I could go the other way up the hill, and then there's another road up the hill where if I set a roadblock there and a roadblock there, this whole area, nobody could get into this. There's no other entrances into this area. So by setting up those roadblocks now, I could protect this whole area. But then I got to think, okay, now all the people inside that area, I got to get them on board, because if I'm going to try to do that myself, what are they going to say? Hey, you can't set a roadblock there.
Yeah.
Who are you? You're not the law. So then, that gets into, you start talking about how important a group is, right? Having more than one person. So yeah, we got our modern day Minuteman, but you can't forget about, having more people involved and having an area study and stuff like that too. So lots of stuff to think about. Yeah. But so then backing up a little bit, we were talking about the gear, right? So you think about like a neighborhood, what are we defending against? So are we talking maybe 7-8 trucks that have 5 or 6 guys in the back that have rifles and shotguns and ARs?
Well, so what I wanted to get into really is there's different types of loadouts, and I don't want to go deep into like 10 different subcategories, but there's some people who think you need a plate carrier and 3 magazines and a battle belt. And then I've kind of been pushing the rifleman camp idea, which is a frame backpack and a chest rig or LCE and stuff that you can go deep into the forest with and actually cover some ground with. But there's different scenarios in which different types of equipment are appropriate.
So we're talking about a rifleman, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about the gear that you need to be the modern day Minuteman. What do you need? Do you need a rocket launcher?
No.
Yeah,
you need hand.
hang on.
Do you need hand grenades?
Does it come with a raccoon?
Well, then you got to think, right? What's realistically attainable by the everyday citizen? And to me, that's one of the reasons why the people that want to do gun control, why they want to take away AR-15s, because that's a pretty efficient. Like, what's the next level beyond an AR-15? Well, besides full automatic. You're getting like a machine gun or something, right?
You're asking me?
Yeah, anybody.
I have no fucking clue.
You guys combat. You're a ranger.
You go from M4 to belt fed.
Yeah, belt fed. So that's a little bit unrealistic.
Right.
So then you back up to, okay, what's the most capability as an individual citizen that I could have to really
AR?
Well, and it's also portable, right?
Yeah.
The belt fed, that becomes your entire life, is to transport that system.
Exactly.
So it's not realistic. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So now as a single man, if I can set myself up with a semi-automatic rifle with a standard capacity 30 round mag or a 40 round mag or a 60 round drum, you're fairly capable.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot other criminals could do to you that you couldn't defend against.
Reminds me.
Right?
Yeah. Thanks for having us over.
Yeah, no shit. Well, what's that?
What do we got here?
Oh, that's for you.
What?
Thank you.
Oh, look at
I know
that.
it's a drop in the bucket looking around here, but
Paperweight,
it's your
I
drop
like
in the
it.
bucket.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah.
Thanks. But wouldn't you agree? Like that's quite a bit of capability for an average citizen, right? I wasn't a combat veteran. I was a veteran, and I shot torpedoes and and stuff like that, right, off of submarines. But not being a combat veteran, being an untrained civilian goofball, like Glenn Tate would say, I'm able to take a class with Training Northwest and learn how to be somewhat proficient with the AR-15 rifle.
Yeah.
And then you can take some classes, and I've got friends, and I've taken classes and to learn how to move, shoot, move, and communicate, cover and move. Isn't that's the way?
Yeah.
Combat doctrine.
Yes.
The basic
that's American doctrine is fire and maneuver.
Fire and maneuver. There you go. That's what I was getting at. Yeah. So once as an average citizen, when we're talking about the Minuteman, if you have enough ammunition and you have a good serviceable semi-automatic AR-15, and you have friends and other people that that can also use that, and you can work together in a safe way, besides going into like military, who can come against you?
Yeah, you're right.
Well, that's why like every cop car has an AR in it.
Well, that brings me back to night vision and thermal, because the one thing that changes that situation, if you take two equally armed, sort of opposing little clans, if one has night vision and the other doesn't, guess who wins?
Yeah, night vision guys. Yeah. Unless you move, everything's done at the day and you retreat at night, and it doesn't matter.
How far are you retreating?
But
they have offensive
but that's
capability at night.
Can raccoons see at night?
But that's hit and run.
So now this is good, because now we're down to the plate carrier is no longer valid.
No.
The big helmet with all the heavy shit on it is not valid, because
helmet might.
You're going to do one of two things. Either you need your kind of backpacking type gear so you can kind of disappear into the wilderness a little bit, or you need to go full on low visibility to where you're wearing this. And this is where I was kind of hoping this conversation would lead, because I think all the people spending thousands of dollars on plate carriers and Mitch helmets and Cry multicam gear are wasting their fucking money, because in a world where there may be drones, where someone else may have thermal vision, where someone else may have night vision, the one thing that can defeat that is just moving with normal civilian traffic dressed as a normal civilian. Yeah. And that requires a much different outlook. This kind of the way I arrived here is I never felt like I was in a lot of danger when I worked with the CIA in Iraq, even when we were running around Mosul in 2005 and 2006, which was that city was fucking dangerous back then.
Yeah.
And because we sort of dressed down and we
kind of have a worldly look to you too.
Do I?
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
What is he proving?
Like a Middle Eastern hobo.
Mediterranean.
Shit.
Sorry, bro.
And so just because we didn't carry we didn't blend in. We were very obviously gringos. You can't. These people can tell tribal differences by looking at each other. You're not gonna like these idiots who grew a beard and were like, "I'm trying to blend in with the locals." No, you're fucking not.
Wearing your Oakleys and
yeah, exactly.
But you're not wearing a uniform.
Solomon.
Exactly. What I'm saying is we didn't dress like combat soldiers.
Yes.
And so we were able to move through these cities without drawing a lot, even though people would look at us and be like, "Oh, foreigners." It wasn't foreign combat soldiers, or it wasn't combat soldiers from the next clan over. It was just, oh, they're not from our neighborhood. And so I think that if you're playing defense for your community, then yes, wear a plate carrier, wear a helmet. But if you're going to need to move outside of your little bubble, the answer is not to be kitted up and rolling around like Mad Max. The answer is to be dressed down like you're going about your daily business. And we're getting into different scenarios because we're talking breakdown of society and various clans, not necessarily warring, but just trying to survive. Whereas if you were dealing with an occupying force, then again, by dressing down and just sort of moving with society, that's a great way to sort of nip away at their heels and start to bleed them.
I mean,
but let's not go down that rabbit hole. Let's get back to.
I think what the first move would be at that point is, say something happens, everybody goes, hey, we don't have to go to work anymore, and now we're trying to figure out how to live amongst ourselves.
Yes,
I think
with no power.
With no power, exactly.
No cell phones.
So it's find a way to communicate if you have it. Right. If it's a grid down scenario, like I've said before, you're still going to have some comms, not all, and it's certainly going to be limited to range.
Yeah, you're
June
two-way
6th,
radios.
June 6th, Training Northwest, comms class.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, yeah, you're going to be limited to two-way radios or a hard land, like the old school. Remember the World War II movies where they're laying out the cable, and then you got to have the battery and the generator running it. But more importantly, what everybody should have is a rally point and a meetup location, because communication is going to become largely in person.
Yes.
Or by the passing of messages with fucking physical medium, like
Carrier
a
pigeons.
letter.
See, but
There he is.
That's where I go back
Bird
to
law.
this.
Get bird law out of here.
Mike, we could also transmit it on the Akashic record.
Oh God. So, but that's where it goes back to me for hunting. If we have that type of collapse or something happens, and a lot of cars aren't used, I mean, the Minuteman of the past was made to be lethal and mobile, right? He maybe had to go 5 to 10 miles in a day or
Per
so.
day.
But we live in a different time.
But if that happened, what if cars are not really working?
I agree. Mobility is important.
Yeah.
Mobility
So,
is extremely important.
for me-
XR250.
I constantly go to a 48 or 72 hour kit. So I'm thinking archery elk, like a couple day backpacking journey in something that provides you ammo, shelter, some sort of cook system, and then all your little in between stuff,
The 5 C's of survival.
Yeah. And that's where it's like, I get lost when people are like, I need night vision, I need this, I need that. And it's like, to me, if something happens, you want to be camping in a way with an AR. You want to have your backpacking bag where you have a 1 pound
like a sustainment kit.
Yeah, you have a quick pull tent that you can give yourself shelter. You have a 2 pound sleeping bag that provides you warmth.
That's true, because we can't predict the scenario. Here we are talking in circles trying to come up with the scenario, and the reality is you can't predict the scenario. So Mike's right. You do need to have several days worth of, if you have to just be, if there is no infrastructure available to you, you can provide everything for yourself.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Mike, because that gets us back to the rifleman camp, which is you got to come live out of your backpack for 3 days.
But that's what I think of on the Minuteman. It's like someone that can move and defend with just the crap they have on your back.
Exactly.
And in
That's a great way to put it.
2024, what do you have on your back that can make you a problem to other people or opposing forces?
So what do you think? 3 to 5, maybe 5 days worth of food, and I don't mean well fed, like a single mountain house per day.
Yeah.
A sleep system capable of the winter weather that is at your, you know what I mean? If you're in New England, you need some pretty serious gear.
But also think of those modern men back then. This area is so green. Do you know what grows around here that's edible?
Marijuana.
Well, yeah. But there is so much around you. Part of the Minuteman skill is the skills
Bushcraft.
of foraging. I think as a modern day Minuteman, you should learn maybe a bit more of what's edible, what's around you. We live in a very abundant area.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe even having a slingshot, if a
Snare
squirrel.
wire.
Yeah.
Know how to use it.
But we also live in a much more populated area, right? So those neighbors, it's not, unless you live in the country, your neighbor's typically not more than 100 yards away from you.
Feet away from you.
Well, that's if you're lucky, right? So there's a lot more people to contend with, and there's going to be a lot of people that I would imagine are frantic, scared, have no clue, have had their head in the sand. That's going to be a majority of people. and they're going to go, oh shit, what do I do? I don't have any food and my cable's not working. What do I do now? So what do you do to those people that are running around? Do you go, hey, you need guidance? Why don't you come get guided with me over here?
This is a good question, because I've thought about this. Like, what do you say to the people who come knock on your door after the fact and go, hey, I know we thought you were kind of nutty before, and we're stuck. We need help.
Trebuchet.
Do you feed them to the orcas? Or?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I talk about when I'm teaching, preparedness classes and talking to people about stuff is be prepared to do to have charity, right? So we have like kits that we'll put together that's like a giveaway kit, right? So you have maybe a 5-gallon buckets. We'll talk about food storage. So you guys have seen rice. You put your rice, a 25-pound bag of rice goes in the Mylar bag, oxygen absorbers, and a 5-gallon bucket. Boom, you've got a whole bunch of rice for long-term storage. Well, what happens if you want to give some to a neighboring family or somebody coming through and they're good people and you want to help them? Are you going to give them the whole bucket of rice? Right? No. It's like having a 1-ounce gold coin and you need to buy 5 gallons of gas, right? It's kind of hard to split that up. So, hey, maybe you have some packs of food that's a giveaway that you can give to somebody that's a good person and they're coming through, or somebody It's not going to take away from all of your supplies, but it's going to say, hey, I'm going to give you this. This is all I can spare. Go on your way.
If I see you again, I'll kill you.
Exactly. So I've got some 5-gallon buckets that have, like a pound of rice, a pound of beans, some quick oats, some spices, some other things in there. So it would take care of a family for 3-4 days or whatever, a week. And then you can give that to somebody. And then it says, it's like a giveaway thing.
Yeah. Mike, what's in your apocalypse charity buckets?
A bullet.
but you think about it,
is it a 22?
No, it's hard when the world falls apart. Charity, like you guys were talking about, what are your morals? And it's like, goddamn, morality is going to be pressed.
Get sacrificed real fast.
Because if it does get hard, it's going to be hard to give out handouts.
Yeah.
Well, no, you can't, right? If you give to every person that asks you, and even today, if every time you pulled up to a stop sign and a guy has a thing says, down on my luck, anything helps, God's bless. If you gave that every person you saw money, you wouldn't have any more money left.
Yeah.
Right. And so, you have to budget that. You need to think about that, right? For the most part, you don't, but there's going to be, there's going to be people, there's going to be times. And so you're going to have to weigh that out. But I was asking some of my friends and people that I know some questions as far as for this podcast. And that was one that a couple people hit on. And it was, talking about let me see if I can read this. It was talking about the Neanderthals, right? And it said, it said too many Neanderthals think they'll just go around killing other fellow Americans for their supplies if there was ever a hard time, right? And you think about it,
crossed my mind.
If you're a first of all,
hang on, the person saying that is probably not capable of fighting back.
Oh, you don't know this guy.
Yeah, all right, good.
He's a badass. But think about this too, right? I believe there's more to this life, right? What comes after this life, right? Yeah. And so do you want to be an evil person and a person that does bad? What
Yeah, but I think
what comes back, even people that believe in karma. But if you're going to go around being evil, say you don't believe in the afterlife. Yeah. Say, to me it's like I would rather do good and then be killed for doing good than to live and do evil. And to me, I believe that the afterlife is more than just this life. But even if you don't believe that, if you think you're going to go around and just being an evil person, right? I don't think you'll last long. No. How many good people out there are going to band together in groups and say, that guy's a turd.
Yeah. Form a posse and run him down.
We're not going to put up with him.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like that's what we'd probably do. If there was some guy over there and he's kidnapping and raping kids from the neighborhood, what are we going to do to the guy?
I hope so. But we're back to when we were all kids. We were pretending we were the sheriff's, we were riding our little stick horse with our 6-shooters, and we were the posse with the marshal out hunting down the outlaws, which is exactly what Brent's talking about.
History has said otherwise. Like, look at the reign of Genghis Khan.
Well, I'm thinking look at Leningrad, where everybody started, it became dog eat dog.
Yeah. Would you have rather fought Genghis Khan or rode with him, though? That's something you got to just decide. And that's what we said in the very beginning of this is what side do you want to be on? And at that point,
he was also good. Probably, I don't know. I would assume he was good to his own people.
Yeah, he was.
Was he?
Yes.
Okay, well,
Right. But I mean, he would.
The Mongols.
I never met the guy.
Mongols
so.
would absorb
Other
areas
cultures.
they would take, and they would make the people that
They would
were
allow them
peaceful,
to keep their culture.
They would put them at the front of the line to be like the victims of the war.
Oh,
like,
no shit.
I mean, there were rivers of blood.
Oh.
It was.
I thought they
They're
also
brutal, man.
captured
Genghis
areas.
Khan was one of the worst.
Oh, okay.
So good or bad?
But I mean, it's tough. It's tough when things are happening like that. Like, you want good to win, but I think when, like I said earlier, Genghis Khan thought he was doing the best for the steppe empire of China. And for
I think people
Mongolia.
like that, like Napoleon, Genghis Khan, Alexander. I think it's more of a
But those are-
narcissistic. Like they're feeding
But
their
those
ego.
are the people that rise when times are tough.
Oh yeah, good leadership qualities, and it
Yeah,
doesn't matter
but-
good or
and
evil. Leadership
yeah,
is leadership.
But think about this. What makes you feel better in your heart? Is it being good or being evil? Like if Tobin dropped a $20 bill, Mike, and you came walking by,
Going to dispensary.
right? Are you going to
I
pick it
hear
up
you.
and give it back to him, or are you going to put it in your pocket?
No, I think
Hey man, it's why not put it in my pocket? It's get what I can get.
living a
But
life.
you wouldn't do that because you
feel bad.
You love him. You care.
Yes,
and
yes.
it makes you feel better to have a good, to do the right thing. Right? Is not stealing.
To go back to the Bible, for me, it's like treat others how you want to be treated.
Exactly right.
And I feel like morality-wise, when you can live in a society where that's something you can do, that means your culture has made it in a certain way, you know? And so when it's in these tough times, I would strive for a utopian idea of that. Let's try and be more just than we are right now. We can strive for something better. I just constantly feel when it goes into, if it was to ever devolve into a situation like that, you would see the whole gambit. And that's...
And I think you're back to when people get desperate. They're like a mother with starving children is willing to she'll take on a little bit of evil upon herself in order to feed her children.
Yes.
And it's hard to look at
knowing
that
that it's
like
wrong.
evil.
She'll know it's wrong, but she's willing.
It's so hard to look at that as evil.
But what I'm saying is that she knows what she's doing is wrong, but she's willing to sort of sacrifice her soul for the betterment of her children.
Yeah, I mean, Forrest Gump's mom did it. Got him in school.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Boy, sure does care about your school and
Mama sure does care about your education, son.
So I mean, there's
a good mom. It's a great mom.
So I mean,
She's single.
Yeah. That's a MILF.
Sally Field.
Yeah. Sally Field.
Take your hat off, Bandit.
Yeah. Boom from the eagle.
so what? It sounds like you had a little bit more of an outline. Plan
Well, I
for
mean, I
this
just had
than-
I had asked some questions to guys and
Yeah,
stuff as
I'm
far
curious.
as talking about the Minuteman, citizen preparedness, discussing the importance of being ready to respond quickly to emergencies or crises in today's world. So what that goes back a little bit. So you guys we're talking about the gear, right? Let me ask you this. Is as a modern day Minuteman, do you think that's only?
I was just going to say having
your
handyman
case-
tools and things
Exactly.
like chainsaws.
Is it
and snow
having a
shovels,
gun and a what are you more likely to have
down
to do?
trees, down power lines, house fire?
100%. And so one of the things with my guys that we talk about, we have different loadouts, and we have the utility gear loadout, and then we have a low profile security loadout, and then we have the full kit security loadout, right? And so you say, well, you don't need camouflage, right? There may be a time where you would need camouflage. If you were having to take to the woods and you were completely on the run, you may need to be in full camouflage.
Sometimes camouflage isn't camouflage.
There you go. The hard hat and the safety vest might be camouflage in certain
where you
areas,
want to go,
right? But in the utility loadout, you have steel-toed, steel shank boots. You've got leather gloves. You've got hard hat, safety glasses, gear like that, right? To go and
This fucking guy's going to make us wear hard hats in the apocalypse, Jordan.
Yeah, dude.
Jesus.
you don't want your head to get smashed in, right? I mean, whatever.
It's not OSHA approved, guys. Stop.
But no, so that's the thing, right? That modern day Minuteman, somebody, we're not facing the redcoats, but we may be facing natural disasters or emergencies.
And there certainly will be, because if society falls apart, do you think anybody's going to the?
No one's coming to save you.
No one's coming to save you. I've heard that before.
Yeah. I was talking with my friend at the fire department last night, and we were discussing this, and I was like, hey, if things got weird and there's a breakdown in the rule of law and people, these fire stations, guess what? These neighborhoods, we have these big generator running, and if this neighborhood is no power and it's freezing out, you don't think the people are going to swarm that fire station?
Yeah.
And I said, hey, what would you be willing to risk to save our fire engine? Like, me and my guy is on my crew. Like, and then it's like, well, nothing, man. I'm going to let them have it.
Well, and how many of those people are going to be at home with their, like, are the firemen even going to be on duty?
Well, but that's the thing, right? Say I'm on duty and something starts going down. Now, the city, if there's no fire engine in that city, what happens when the fires start? That city is just going to burn to the ground.
Yeah.
And if there's no first responder, so how important is that fire engine, right? So you start getting into a lot of different questions as far as, what you're willing to risk. And
it's a good point, because like you look at the fires of Chicago that burnt the city down.
you
Seattle had its own.
man, you lose the whole.
And so not only do you have people going through a tough situation, infrastructure has broken down, so you don't have resources coming in, but now you have like structural fires will spread from block to block to block. So now you're creating more homeless, more vagrants, more just you have nothing now because your town's been completely destroyed.
And when the 911 is just a busy signal, people are going to be, what are they going to do, right? Then that's normalcy bias. We've talked about that on my show a lot. You guys know normalcy bias, right? People think I call 911, somebody shows up.
Yeah.
But when
what if they don't?
Stuff starts going south, and so that's the modern day Minuteman, is that you're somebody that's has a plan for the worst case scenarios, not only for your own life, but then for your community, right? And when I started the Project 223, it was at our church, and it was like, hey, I don't want our people to be, if things get weird and there's no food on the shelves, I don't want people to be showing up and they don't have any food and we can't help them. So let's help everybody help themselves. So now you get this prepared group of people that can take care of themselves. Well, now they can be a source of good in their community, right? And that was another thing that, one of our, let me see here, we had some other questions. Community resilience, highlighting initiatives and practices that foster resilience and self-sufficiency at the local level, right? It's like government, and we've complained about these politicians that have let us down, right, as a society, but are we as people going to try to make our neighborhoods better and our communities better? I mean, that's what type of responsibility do we have
I think we're back to the importance of forming community groups.
Yeah.
Because the government is not going to save you. They're in it for themselves. And when it actually, like, name me something they've done successfully, especially like when there's pressure.
The government is the citizens, and they're not going to be able to hold it up. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you work for the fire station,
you're going to go home to take care of your own.
What are you going to do?
Same with the police. Yeah, they're going to go home and take care of their own people.
Yeah, so it's
same with National Guard,
with all of it,
and the military that flies those
That's a
drones.
great point. Is that we always, at least in our lifetime and in generations prior, we've gone to war somewhere else, which means we can kind of like kiss the women and kids goodbye and feel
safe.
like they're safe.
Yeah.
If war comes here, or if societal collapse comes here, or if some sort of civil breakdown comes here, you can't kiss the women and kids goodbye and feel good that when you're a mile and a half down the road, they're protected.
No. Yeah. You can't be 100 yards down the road.
Yeah.
And feel good about it.
Yep. So we're back to, you need a group, you need a community. And reestablishing that as quickly as possible is probably, that should be everybody's mission number one, which takes you from, you need some short-term survival, like self-defense type stuff. But if maybe people should be thinking, my primary scope here is to help rebuild a society, even at a small level. And rather than outfitting yourself for 90 days of just bitter street fighting, which who the fuck wants that when it really comes down to it? Sure, it's fun to play on Call of Duty, but you don't want that.
No.
What you want is to reestablish a functioning society as quickly as possible so that we can get back to drinking beers and talking into microphones.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
I'm sorry, go ahead. I mean, just it goes down to tools, right? Like in what you're talking about,
I think
loadout.
We should really be focusing on having, like, I have a
mechanical
shitload
aptitude. Do you have an axe? Do you have a way to fold it? I mean,
Grand Forest Brooks,
socket sets,
I do.
Screwdrivers.
You guys do.
I still got a cut on my thumb from the axe. God damn it!
That is a sharp bugger.
It makes me think too, because you guys are saying how important night vision and all this stuff is, but it's like, yeah, that's important for the fight, but like Brent was saying, like you're gonna have down power lines, you're gonna have everything you need to rebuild society are those tools. And having the tools of night vision is nice for the fighting, but the fighting will eventually start to maybe subside a little bit. In the modern day Minuteman of the past, he had the weapons and he had to travel. But in that time period, everyone had tools. Right. Every house had tools. Yes. In a generation,
people were already living subsistence living.
Yeah, when people don't have tools in this generation, maybe the modern day Minuteman is Paul Bunyan.
Well, no, and like you going back, things could break down in an area, but it would be localized to that area. Yeah. Nowadays, when things break down, it's regional, huge. It's going to be large scale, right? And so that's a lot different. Well, and I really think too is that there's going to be, I think, a huge amount of people that die off when things go south.
Oh, instant,
I mean, even if you look at the Bible in the book of Revelation, it says that by the time the end of the tribulation is over half of the population of the earth is dead.
I think more. And honestly,
I'm just telling you what it says there.
Oh, sorry.
But no, that's okay. I mean, I don't. That's like say that's what it says there. But so I think being able to survive with your family and your community, building with your area operations, setting up your perimeter and protecting your family while everybody out there is killing each other.
Yes.
What you surviving 60 days. You can make your way through a certain amount of time, and then that's like Tobin was saying of building that community back, you know. Yes. And you read it in a lot of, I like reading preparedness books, right? And a lot of these books, there's initially, the SHTF, things just going crazy, everybody's killing each other. And then over a period of time, things start to settle out and they start going back, getting a little bit back to normal because a lot of the people have killed themselves, they've starved.
Some might say balanced.
There you go.
Mike?
Right? That's right. Well, no, when you think about it, right?
It is a balance. Mother Nature corrects.
With our technology, sadly to say, is that people stay alive a lot longer than they should.
The weak survive.
Yes. People are taken care of. Like I see these people. I was in this old folks home just the other day.
Jordan's been here for 30
years. And we saw this man, and he's laying in this 34. Home. You know how many adult family homes are in neighborhoods around the city?
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
And you see just a regular house, and you go in there, and there's 5 or 6 people in rooms, laying in rooms that are being taken care of by nurses 24 hours a day. And we saw this old man, and his son was there, and they sent him to the hospital. He came back, and later that night, they called us back, and he had passed. Yeah. And I had to check the guy and look at him, and he's dead, and shake the guy's hand, and he was so thankful that we were so compassionate to him. But that man would have died probably years before that.
Yes.
If there wasn't, all the benefit that we have in society right now. I mean, all that stuff we have right now goes away. That instant care, the
medicine, blood pressure medicine.
How many people are on 5 or 6 prescription medications? Imagine if that stopped tomorrow.
Or even
anybody who has
and
diabetes.
just look at. I was just going to say, look at how unhealthy Americans in general are.
Well, I think we said this on one of our cleaned up. Some people's diets might. Some motherfuckers might
Some
start feeling
trans, dude.
I'm thinking more along the lines of like we talked about this on the last episode or maybe 2 episodes ago, where disease would spread so quickly in America today if our the sanitation was lost just because of how unhealthy people are. They don't have the resiliency. So it would just knock so many people down so fast that, again, I think you're back to survive 60 days, maybe 90. I don't know who knows? We could debate that number. But the reality is it's a short-term survival followed by how do we reestablish a productive and fruitful society?
Yeah. You got to start eating stuff off the ground now.
That's right.
That immune system,
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing too, right? Like
let your kids play in the dirt.
As a Christian man, right, I believe that the Bible talks about the rapture of the church, okay? And so that's when the Lord comes back down, Jesus Christ comes back down, and the Christians of the earth are taken out of the earth. And it's called the rapture. You guys have probably heard that before, right?
Yep.
And so there's debate on it, but...
Are we talking 8-pound, 7-ounce baby Jesus or front row of the Leonard Skinner concert?
We're talking Jesus with a white robe and a sword coming out of his mouth and fire, and he's riding a white horse, man. But no, this is the risen Jesus that came off the cross and rose again after 3 days.
He's coming back with a purpose.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He's coming back to get his church. But
right.
the thing that's interesting about that is
I want to know more about that.
Yeah. Oh man, we can talk about it. But oh shoot, now I lost my track of where I was going.
Sorry, brother.
but anyways, what were we talking about on that?
Jesus fire out of the sword. He's coming back angry.
He's
going to get his church.
I'll think about it in a minute.
Dang it.
I think it'll be a lot of fire and brimstone.
Like literally out of the sky?
Old Testament. Like you say, if
like a comet strike?
As shit hit the fan scenario, that first month, because we're talking about die-off, medication, stuff like that, that first 3 months is probably just going to be fire and brimstone. You're going to have people just trying to survive. In the same way you go out into the woods and animals are trying to survive, a cougar doesn't care if it's killing a deer, if it's killing a beaver. It's moments of opportunity. And I feel human beings would be the same thing.
So here, that's a great point right there, which is that if you are again, modern day Minuteman, you are prepared for defense. You are not a target of opportunity. Yes. And that's another thing that we exploited in the Middle East by rolling kind of low profile, is that if you're a bomber with your hand on a detonator and you have one shot to make this IED count, it's very easy to identify like the giant striker, armored vehicle, right? Yeah. It's much more difficult in a sea of sedans to identify. Like by the time you realize, that was a couple of white guys, they're gone.
Yes.
And so becoming the target that's either like you have two options: camouflage, make yourself less noticeable so that you're not a easy to spot target, or B, make yourself a target that looks like shit. If I attack this target, it's going to attack back, and I'm going to get fucked up. So maybe this is not the target I want to pick a fight with.
They call that the butterfly wings.
You're talking about like the eyes on the back of the wing?
Yeah,
like,
dude.
You guys seen that tribe where they put the eyes on their shield and they wear their shields on their back because lions are ambush predators?
Yeah, in India, they wear human masks with the face on the back of the head so the lions don't attack them.
Sometimes I put the sunglasses on the back of my head when I get freaked out in the woods.
Do you really?
I do it when Jordan,
absolutely, 100%.
I do it when Jordan walks behind me on the trail.
Yeah, I never put that together. We went on that hunt, and
Mike told you to walk in front.
Oh yeah, but we were sitting there, and I was like, I always like make up these like stories when I'm back here and start kind of going down the rabbit hole on like these murder mystery things, and like
Mike's
I start.
You got point, buddy.
Yeah, 100%. I started telling this plot for like 20 minutes, and I didn't. We're walking in the woods.
Yeah, Jordan's just talking,
and I'm just talking, and he's like, "Why don't you get in front, dude?" And I was like, "Okay, yeah, no problem." And I just get in front, and then months later, it comes up, and he's like, "Yeah, that's the first hunt we did together."
See, but that's my survival instinct. You weren't even thinking about it. I'm like, "You take lead, buddy." He's like, "Will do, sir."
Yeah,
and it's like right inside the head. You got to be thinking deeper on these levels.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So what have we gotten so far? So as a modern Minuteman, I think one thing is it's not just
equipment and gear.
Security.
Yeah.
Well, let's first, what's the situation, right?
Yep.
It's not just security. So, you could be fighting off looters and marauders if they're without rule law situation. There's the whole Red Dawn aspect. Are we being invaded by a foreign power? So it could be an issue like that. It could be, those are security type issues. It could be something where you need to be more of a gray man. You don't want to stand out, so you want to be able to be a little more low profile. So you have gear can be worn underneath other gear, bulky clothes and stuff, so you don't stand out. But there may be a time where you need to wear camouflage gear and be in full, with night vision and stuff in the woods. So good to have both of those. But it also may be not a security issue, but it may be a natural disaster. So it could be, what do we have around here? Windstorms,
earthquake,
snowstorms, power outages, the bit full rip earthquake.
Earthquakes are
volcanoes.
That's going to be huge. Yeah. Well, no, yeah, we do.
Gusera.
So there's security, and then there's also just the disaster preparedness type stuff. So as a modern Minuteman, you have a loadout that's, like you said, chainsaws and leather gloves and pry bars and stuff like that.
It's almost like you need to have all the bins on your storage shelves in the garage. Like one's got utility clothing, one's got your plate
100%.
carrier and your camouflage, one's got your backpack can be sitting up there, and kind of depending on the situation. And even like I keep a chainsaw in the little truck box on the back and some 2-stroke and a few tools, just because there's been a few times where I haven't been able to get into the range. Like the trees are down. It's like, oh shit, I've got students showing up and I need to be able to cut my way in. But then out here on these rural roads, Anthony, our friend from the gym, was telling us the other day that he came across a big down tree while he was driving. And he's like, God dang it, my chainsaw is back at my house. And so he got out and he's like, fortunately, the next car that came up on us was an arborist. And he had all his stuff. Way. But he's like, so we got this tree cut out of the way. And he's like, dude, I felt like such a dumbass because I looked at the guy and I was like, I got a chainsaw too, man. It's at my house.
He's like, sure
it's like, yeah, what good did it do you? Yeah. Which then now you're balancing stuff like, I'm always worried that it's going to get stolen out of my truck box because drug addicts like to dig into toolboxes because a chainsaw is a great item to pawn, right? So we've got all these sort of nuances and balances you have to find, and what do you keep with you? What do you keep at home? You know what I mean? It can't. Nothing can be at a minute's notice if you're at work in Seattle, 40 miles from where you live.
I think it comes down to also being organized and
just having a plan.
Having a plan, but being physically organized with your home and your setup of how you have all of your equipment laid out. Yeah. Some people will put all their equipment in one box. That's like you said, I have different scenarios and we have a different box. So here's this, what's got my full battle rattle ready to rock. I got that. And then there's the I'm going camping box that has all the shelter and the cook stuff and all that. That's like more, it's going to be an adventure. And then there's the I got to go to work tomorrow box that's full of, hammers, nails, and everything else. And then there's I got this pile of material laying in my yard because I have it and I need it. And that's
because I needed a pontoon boat and it looks great in my front yard.
Hey, dude. And it does. And it
the dogs love it.
Called yard art, dude. Yeah.
Next to the garden gnome.
Where I grew up, that was a sign of wealth.
What was I going to say? And I think along kind of with what Jordan's saying is that everybody should sort of focus on what you're already good at, right? Like, so he and I are electricians. We should have electrical tools. We should have some spare, you know what I mean? All the stuff we need to go do electrical work. And I've even started saving like little bits of scrap wire and whatnot just to have in the garage because who knows, maybe you'll need to patch something through or run, some little small repair, and you're not going to be worried about whether it's code compliant or not. You're just going to be trying to get things back to functional again. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been saving car parts.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
And I'm an EMT, right? So it'd be silly if I didn't have some medical gear where I could actually do some good for somebody, right? Or if you're a ham radio operator, if you don't have a radio kit in your vehicle to where you can actually
and a generator and a way to run it all. Yeah, exactly.
Well, the other thing, this funny thing about the radios to me is it's one of those things that unless you have your job as a radio guy, if you're a radio guy, is really important to also be a teacher because not everybody's going to know it. And you have to know a little bit to be able to use them.
Yeah.
But as like, if you fancy yourself like a radio ham guy, I think it's important that you can teach it too, because
and the same is true of being a medic or being, it's true of every skill you can have, right?
Well, no, but I mean like a radio, I got to communicate to somebody.
Yeah, that's
I ain't got nobody to talk to.
If you have a group, you have a group that you've built, you can work together and you have to be balanced. And so, I'm working on as Project 223, I call it the group preparedness plan. And so it has different modules. And so it helps you not get unbalanced in a certain area, right? Because people will be like, I'm going to get all the guns. Okay. And somebody else will be over here and they've got food and stuff. And they go, well, yeah, I'm just going to come take your food and, with my guns. Well, that other person probably has guns too. And you may go to try to take their food and you don't realize that that guy's smart enough to have food and he's got a team and that team is all set up and you think you're going to go over there with your guns and they take you out. Right. Yeah. But so,
and your guns.
Yeah. And they take your guns. Right. But so if you're balanced and you think, okay, I have to have security, but I also need to have food and water. I need to have communications. I need to know medical. I need to have planning and logistics, right? I have an area study. by being balanced and planning like that across the board, it helps you to get at all those areas. And so you have a group and then you focus on comms. Well, there may be a couple guys in that group that are ham radio operators. Those guys focus on training everybody up, like you said, and you build a pace plan for your team, and you have that written up, and you put it on a laminated card. And my little bag over there is my little Minuteman bag that I have in my bedroom, and it's got gear on it in it. And next to my radio, I got a laminated card with my pace plan on it. And it tells me exactly which, depending on if it's grid up, ISPs are up, and the cell phones are up. These are my primary means of communication. Alternate, now the cell phones are down, but the ISPs are still up and the grid's up. Now I have these ways to communicate. Grid's down, or cell phones are down, ISPs are down. Now I go to this plan. That's my contingency. And in an emergency, I go all the way down here to dead drops and rendezvous locations, and there's all kinds of stuff. So if you plan like that across the board, it helps you, keeps you from being deficient in any one area. And like you were saying, you don't have to be the expert in radio, but you should have a friend that knows radio and he can help you. There's guys in my group that are like, man, I don't know. Just give me a radio. Tell me which channel to go to. I have no idea. So
that's most people with ham
So
radio.
I take the radio and I program the radio for them. Here you go. Here's the radio. These are the channels. Okay, great. Thanks. They don't know, what that frequency means and what the offset is and what the privacy tone is. They have no idea on that. Just go to this channel.
Right.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think that goes to show that, yes, it's nice to have diversity in skills as a group, so certain people can focus on other things, but in the individualistic level, become obsessed, be a savage, become the best that you can be in one particular thing. Because, if you want to teach, what do you have to do to teach?
In the Army reserves.
You have to know the insides and outs of that particular skill. So if you like guns, become an expert marksman, become proficient in your weapon, become quick in the skills of your weapon.
Become a gunsmith.
Yes, exactly.
Know how the ins and outs of the whole craft.
So I think for survival, yes, maybe dabble in a little bit of everything, but what's really strong is
be expert in one or two things.
Yes, nailed it. And that's also that community, that thing where you're wanting to build this tribe. It's like greatness seeks greatness. When I used to fight, people would always say, if you're a wrestler, why are you going to start kickboxing? You know what got you to the dance. Excel at it and become great at it. Use what's good, what you're proficient at, and you excel at, and become a master at that. And I think for a modern day Minuteman, you should have something, at least one skill that you're like, I'm nuts at this, because that will lead you to greatness. Other people will recognize it, and you start to build betterness through that. No one wants to adopt someone in their group that's half-assed at everything. You want someone that really can steal the show.
Well, I'll tell you what. Well, just real quick, I got a book over there on the shelf by a guy named John Mosby, and he's a trainer, and he's a former Green Beret SF guy. I've taken classes from him, and it talks about forging the hero, and it says, he who does more is worth more. And it's like, what's your worth? And Mike, just like you're saying, if you're an expert at something and you can bring that knowledge and those skills and bring that to a group of people and help present that and train them, that's valuable.
Yes.
Right. And and what I've kind of seen, and it's kind of sad, is that sometimes there's people that they want to come and get the benefit of the group, but then they don't want to contribute. Right. And is that fair to other people to say, hey, I expect that I'm going to get from you, but I'm not willing to give back. I'm not willing to contribute. And guess what? You're not going to.
No, you topple society that way. Look at what we're look at America right now.
The makers versus the takers.
Well, and people aren't going to want to be around you. Yep. They're just not going to want to be. It's like if you're not contributing, if you're not giving anything, if you're just a taker, they're just going to say, you know what?
I've had a few people at work be like, man, I'm glad I'm friends with you, and it's like, yeah, what are you bringing?
No,
because if you show up at my doorstep.
Yeah.
Too bad that we were friends.
Yeah, that's a lot of gas money.
I don't know if you guys read, who Glenn Tate is. He wrote the 290 Days book series, and he talks a lot about his buddy who was the same thing, right? He would while Glenn's sitting there preparing and storing food and training and all this, he's going to wine parties and watching the football game and and having a leisurely life. And he would tell Glenn, hey man, when the shit hits the fan, I'm coming to your house. And he literally looked him in the eyes and said, man, if you show up at my door, I'm going to shoot you in the face. And the guy was like, what? I can't believe that. And he goes, I've been trying to tell you to prepare. I've been encouraging you, I've been inviting you to go shoot and do stuff, and you're just enjoying life. If you think you're going to come and take, I've got a year's worth of food and you show up, now I've got 6 months worth of food.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it's going to happen. Right. And granted, like say, people think, well, what about charity and what about doing the right thing? I'm just saying as a general rule, people aren't going to, when it comes down to it, you're talking about what a woman would do to save her kid from starving. When it comes right down to it, there's no food on the shelves and you've only got so much and somebody starts knocking on your door. Your neighbor might be nice to you when you're just trying to borrow a cup of sugar, but when the shit's hitting the fan, they might not answer that door.
Well, I think that's the biggest thing to charity is recognizing who's really going to benefit and use this handout to the best of their ability. Everyone will take, but who's going to use what I give to further themselves and might actually
am I planting a seed or am I just throwing the shit away?
Yeah.
Exactly, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's just the reality. That's just the nature.
I kind of think we're down to maybe the couple.
Hang on, we never hit gear though. We're throttling Jordan.
No.
For the apocalypse, he's got to have some gear things. A Minuteman apocalypse. What? Because I know you think about gear. You dream
I just like
about
it.
gear.
I just love using it and having it and all that. But
as a modern day Minuteman, what do you
what would you have in a bag that you're going to have in your closet?
If there was no like financial burdens on me, like
reasonable.
Yeah, I mean,
we're going to side by side with an orangutan, an upgun turret.
Yeah, I mean,
left turnclad.
So I think the absolutes everybody can kind of agree on is a rifle, plenty of ammunition, plenty of magazines, a chest rig, a base layer of wool, boots, pants, jacket, rain pants, like all the stuff you need, right? Then you're going to have communication stuff. You're going to have med kit. You're going to have, all of that stuff, cutting tools, saws.
So as a Minuteman, you would carry around like
Brent's got the setup right here. Yeah, exactly.
Folding stock ARs.
Yeah, I mean, when you can fit it all in a bag, it's real nice. But I think like the reality of the situation is you're gonna need to grab and go. And are you gonna have a belt? Probably not.
Do you have a bag?
Here's another. Yeah. Hang on. Here's an important question too. Is
bag?
Everybody thinks about their grab and go gear. Everybody needs to put on their grab and go gear and then go sit in the driver's seat of their car and make sure they fit. Because you don't think about even just having a slick plate carrier, it gets real tough to fit behind that steering wheel. And you think that 5/8 inch plate isn't going to add a lot? It adds a lot.
The only time I wear my plate carrier is in the
workout.
garage. Working out. This is for your protection, Danielle. What do you have in your bag, Jordan? Maybe we just go through a little quickly, what are things that you carry in your Minuteman bag?
Okay, so I carry Niplex pliers. I mean, if we go down this list, it's going to be tough. Tools. I'll try and broaden it. Tools. And that ends up being pliers and multi-tool. There is,
but isn't multi-tool also part of like your shooting kit, like for working malfunctions and stuff? So I mean,
So, that would just
your LCE is going to be part of that. Part of that.
And then there's this little, I can't remember the brand name of it, but it's a little tool for fixing ARs like to a further extent. And then within that, there's some gun lube in the handle. There's that, but I don't carry like much other than that, right? Like a rag, like your cleaning kit, a rifle cleaning kit, and then as far as tools go, a knife is another cutting tool, kind of like a more more stout knife. It's a LT Wright knife. Anyway, so there's that, and then ammunition. I have a med kit, magazines. In that is a chest rig, my little radio, which I don't know how to use nearly enough, and that's part of, like, Tobin programmed my stuff in there, and we've checked it out a couple times, and it works. Water, food, not much.
Will you do mountain house or like peak?
Yeah,
or?
more or less that, and like just hunting food.
Yeah,
basically.
So is it kind of? Would you say it's almost
it's a hunting kit? It's a hunting
Yeah.
kit with some tactical aspects.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of.
It's basically hunting kit swap the rifle.
Yeah,
And instead of a bino harness, wear a chest rig so you can have some magazines and a med kit. And
I do have
possibly a
binos
radio.
in there.
That's actually okay.
Binoculars are a
Gear.
good
That's
one.
a good one. I don't have in my kit
Yeah.
is binos.
And
so.
what
Or
I'm
debating.
But you have a 10 power optic on top of your rifle.
Yeah. What I'm debating on, a really nice one. What I'm debating on is a drone. Is getting a little drone, but you look at those DJI drones though,
I got
and supposedly, like, you look at, like, in Ukraine, and they're using those. I guess there's a way in which that those can be tracked.
Yeah.
So they can.
Yeah, you're talking about having advanced equipment now, though. I'm sure it's probably Radio Shack available, but
$500. Why wouldn't you have one?
to track a drone or to buy a drone.
Oh no, to track a drone. Like me and I don't have the technology to do that. I think
yeah.
99% of the people in the world don't have a technology to use that. But there is a way in which you can do that, and it also takes you back to the person controlling it as well. So that's kind of a nerve-wracking thing. That's something I want to get. I want to get night vision and all that. I don't have any of that.
But
I don't even
like to say night vision because that's not within most people's budget. The reality is
$3,000 is pretty expensive.
That's for like cheap 7 Deltas.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even want those.
No, not. I mean,
Yeah,
you can get a PBS 14 set up for
like
White
7,000, right?
No.
How much?
like four or five.
Under $4,000. You can get the Wilcox mount and the PBS 14 and
All of a sudden,
Yep.
sound
Are
a little
those
bit
the
more.
single tubes though for each eye?
PBS 14.
Yeah, but I started going down the rabbit hole in night vision, and it's like, yes, it only allows in like 30% view of range. You're in a tube.
They weren't great.
You have to do this,
Your-
and you have no depth perception, so you trip and stumble over shit.
worrying about it.
Yeah.
Get it and have it because it's not. You can move with it. You're not driving down the.
I've spent
road.
many hours with them. I've driven with them.
Well, but you're not driving fast with it, right?
No,
but
no.
you get those quads, and all of a sudden you have AR or
you
IR
can ride at night.
headlights, and those guys are driving 50.
But for me,
Right,
it's
like-
going back to that to talk about the AR, right? It's like, for what's the best bang for your buck that gives you quite a bit of capability for a reasonable cost.
A pistol,
Yeah, that's
rifle,
true.
chest.
A PVS 14 might be that.
A lot of the guys that I know a lot of people that's kind of the level where most guys are like, it's a step up. It's
Diminishing
tough.
returns
It's tough for
beyond
people, but beyond that, it's like as the modern day Minuteman, you're not a Navy SEAL or doing raids.
But I think as a modern day Minuteman, you are holding yourself to a higher standard as well.
No, you are,
and that's part of it.
You're the capable,
point of the night, right
You're
there.
the capable citizen.
Yeah.
And
So-
to have that, I think that's a reasonable goal for the average
Absolutely.
citizen.
Absolutely, and I don't think it's unobtainable to many.
I'm glad
people.
I got you guys axes for the 1 year anniversary because whoever's got to buy the night vision for the 2 years. Man.
Hopefully, we'll be sponsored by then. It won't be an issue.
Yeah, no, that's a nice setup of gear.
I mean, I think it's basic. It's the same. It's basically what we took to rifleman camp.
Yeah, I was just going
I
to
don't
say
do
it would be
anything
easy for me to
special.
answer that question because it's the packing list for the rifleman camp, which is kind of what I figured I would need to self-sustain for 3 to 5 days, just out of whatever's on my back.
I have a change of clothes too, just like in hunting kit.
What did your guys' packs come in at weight wise?
I never weighed them.
I think mine was around 40. It wasn't much. It was like 45 pounds.
Yeah, mine was 35.
Yeah, and if you're, and we used to travel we used to say travel light, freeze at night. And even in the Hindu Kush and like some pretty cold weather in February and March, we would get by with a bivy sack and a poncho liner. And the bulk of what we were carrying was ammunition. So really, if we had not been carrying extra mortar rounds and extra batteries for the big, more powerful radios, we could have pretty easily got our entire kit down to sub 40 pounds.
Yeah.
It's amazing how warm you can stay with a naked ranger by you.
Oh, yeah. Let me tell you.
Well, and I think to kind of get back to the gear and stuff a little bit, I think to me, we look at it like the first line, second line, and third line, right? It's like as you're the rifleman camp set up, you've got your gear that's on your body, right? Yeah. You've got your kit on, so your pistol belt, rifle belt, or chest rig. Then you've got your pack, your patrol pack. If you have to dump that patrol pack, the heavy pack that's got all your survival gear that you should be able to live for days out in the field, you drop that. Now you're down to your rifle, your chest rig or a battle belt, whatever they've got, pistol, and then the gear that's on you. And then worst case scenario, you lose that rifle, you lose your chest rig, you have to ditch that stuff, or you get captured, they take it away from you. Hopefully you have some kind of survival kit and some EDC on your body still that you can use as a worst case scenario. If you had to ditch everything and then go covert and blend into an environment, you at least have that something in your pockets, like a small mini survival kit or something of that nature. That's kind of the philosophy I use when I'm thinking about it.
That's a good one to think of.
A lock picking set.
You get in a super messed up situation, and either you expend all your ammo, you have to drop bags, you have to retreat. It's like, do you have a on-body, on-person type of kit, like base essentials, the Altoid tin?
Yeah, cash. Yeah. Or some sort of currency. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, that's you're talking about everyday carry now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and cash is part of that, like a sidearm is part of that. But I mean, if we're talking out in the woods, I don't even carry a pistol.
Exactly.
Right? Because
that's what I mean.
To me, that's dead weight in a situation where it's not effective. But if you go into an urban environment and you're dressing down into your more civilian type clothing, is that a fucking 22?
Is that
or is that some like insane lighter?
This right here?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a lighter. But how cool would it be if it was?
Well, hang on. Look at the bottom of it. When it was laying on the table facing me, I was like, "Is that a barrel of a 22?"
Zip gun.
So back to the rifleman camp type, and what Brent is saying about first line, second line gear is your second line gear is your backpack and the stuff that you need to serve, like your little bit of comfort, your hot food, your sleep system, your toothbrush, stuff like that, and then your first line gear is what you need to fight right now for the next 2 hours. So you can drop the backpack and fight for a couple hours with what's on your LCE or your chest rig. But that, I don't forget where we were going with that.
Well, and to me, there's a cool little kit that I get. It's from an AMP3 Medical, and it's a everyday carry kit, and it's a little Ziploc bag, their little lock sack. It's a heavy-duty Ziploc bag, and that can fit in the pouch of a cargo pocket or something, or a little fanny pack. And it's a little EDC kit, and it's got a lot of this. It's got first aid, it's got compass, it's got notepad and pen. It's got a bunch of stuff that that you need. Like say if you had to ditch everything and that's all you had, kind of like the Altoid tin survival kit. I think it's important to have a little mini kit like that that's got some stuff that you can use to help you. That you can, if you had
number one thing you have in your E&E kit is currency. And if cash isn't worth anything, then you need to have some sort of trade.
Yeah, a willingness to make it.
Yeah, that was the one thing.
Carton of cigarettes.
Everywhere we went, especially in some of the more low-vis countries, when I worked with the agencies, I just had $2,000 in my pocket.
Jiminy
Because if I had to get the fuck out of Dodge, the best thing to have is cash. Hey man, here's you start peeling off $100 bills and say, I need a ride to Peshawar or I need a ride to Islamabad, and throw it at somebody, and more than likely you're going to catch a ride.
Or buy a car.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever. Yeah.
I think cigarettes and booze will be worth so much money.
Coffee,
in the apocalypse, coffee,
pharmaceuticals,
antibiotics. Yeah, as far as like gear, I get really spun up on gear. I enjoy it, but my gear list is pretty basic, and I do find as skills get better, my gear gets less, or I care. But like, I
100% feel you. Like I said, I started hunting in my 30s, and when I first started, it was like, I think my first archery elk backpacking, my pack was like 80 or 90 pounds, but it's because you're like, I need this, I need that. But you start doing it a few more times and you learn what you actually need or
I can ditch
what
this.
you can
This is multi-use.
And you start to reduce it. I think the idea of a Minuteman, it's like you really do have to become proficient with your equipment.
You got to get out and do it. It's not enough to buy equipment and say, I will do this. You need to go deer hunting in the woods, or you need to go on backpacking trips, or you need to, if you're planning on doing some overlanding, take your Jeep and go overlanding in Utah. Do all these things. Actually get out and do these individual skills, which, by the way, when you're training special operations troops, you send them around to all these places to do these independent activities so that they have skill and mobility through a desert environment. And then they can also go up into the woods in the Pacific Northwest and hike in the mountains. Yeah. And they can, you know what I mean? You learn how to ride dirt bikes and you do all these different things.
Riding that backcountry or the backcountry route thing, I think that's going to be a big learning.
Jordan brought me a map of the
trail system,
that backcountry trail dirt bike system where you can go. And I want to get my XR outfitted with a frame for all my camping gear and do some long mobility, camping out.
Canada to Oregon and just make it.
I think you can go all the way down to Mexico.
Oh yeah, you can. But I'm saying just for
you boys like
summer.
Mexico.
Yeah.
Si, senor. But Tobin, my wife won't let me go train because she wants me to work in the house this weekend.
I got to be honest with you guys. Divorce life is pretty good.
Oh, my God.
Well,
nobody's complaining about that XR250.
Well, and I guess the point I'm making is that normalcy bias, it keeps us from being prepared.
Oh, I can't this weekend. I've got something going on.
It keeps us from being ready, and whether it's having a fire extinguisher or having a smoke detector in your house or having life insurance, right? It's like, you got to think, what's the probability of something happening? What's the likelihood of happening in it? And then how bad would that be for me? There was a good video I watched on YouTube the other day. I've seen that Dirty Civilian channel. I don't know if you've seen that.
Very good.
And they had an interesting thing on there, and it talked about, they were kind of hitting on the Civil War movie that just came out. But they basically ran a grid, and they said, okay, here's the likelihood of a certain scenario happening. And then here's how serious it would be for you in your life, right? And so where do these things we prep for fit on there? And they kind of talked about war and civil war and unrest and Red Dawn and what's the one, that Julia Roberts movie they just had out, the
end of the world.
Yeah,
the end is near.
And as we know, right? But it's like, where do those fit into it? And they're more on the highly unlikely scenario side, but the more likely scenario side is, financial, breakdown or cyber attack or a terrorist attack or earthquake or, windstorm, snowstorm, power outages. So inflation, so that, I think it's important when we do look at these, scenarios and what kind of gear we want and where we spend our time and money. How bad would it be for you and your family if there was a 911 wasn't happening and all of a sudden there was somebody going through neighborhoods, breaking into houses, stealing, looting, raping, and killing? How bad would that be for you and your family? How would you feel? And so if you're not able to protect yourself and your loved ones, right? So it doesn't take much to learn how to do that. You come out to Training Northwest, you take a rifle 1 class, a pistol 1 class, you become a little more familiar with how to operate a pistol and a rifle. And now you've significantly increased your ability to protect yourself and your family.
There's also a mental aspect of that, which is the first time you cross that barrier, whether it's a first aid class or a pistol class or what have you, and you sort of go, oh, I can do this. This thing that was previously foreign to me suddenly isn't so intimidating. Like this so many people come out for the beginner, the foundation pistol class, which I ran for the first time just 2 weeks ago. It was awesome because it was people who were very unsure of just the whole notion of owning a pistol even. And there was a lot of nerves and a lot of apprehension. And by the end of it, everybody's smiling, everybody's confident. And it's like, oh, this thing that I thought was a mountain is actually just it's an anthill.
I probably should get a gun.
Yeah.
Right. And then they have
not just get a gun, learn how to use it.
And then, psychologically, now you have to point that at somebody and pull the trigger.
Yeah. Imagine owning a hammer and not knowing how to swing it.
One of the first rifle classes I took, the instructor was John Mosby, right? he lines us all up with our rifles, and he says, "Okay, everybody, clear. Get rid of all your magazines." So we came out, no magazines. Okay, I want you to clear, make safe. Show me a clear rifle. Okay, and then don't move. And he had us line up. Nobody move. And then he went out there and stood about 7 yards, 10 yards out, and said, "Okay, everybody, point your rifle at my chest."
Oh, Jesus!
And everybody's like, "Okay," and we pointed rifles. I mean, we were 100% sure that there was no letter rifle.
Rule number 1.
Okay, but I'm just telling you, this is what he did.
Yeah.
And so everybody pointed the rifle. Okay, now pull the trigger. And it was like, you heard a couple click, click, clicks, and then there was click, and then
bang,
click.
Yeah.
No,
fuck.
No, he bet his life that he would bet his life that they were clear, because he sat there and had us lined up and was watching us all the whole time, and nobody had any live rounds. But he said, how hard was it to line that crosshair up on a human's chest and then pull the trigger? Yep. And even though you knew it was a clear rifle, it was they were like, that was one of the hardest things I've done. It was difficult for people. So.
Yeah. I took a class, and there was a similar thing that we did, and it was just like, man. Well,
then he had us, another time we did is we laid down across out in the field, and we had us all lay down just over a little berm, and it's like, do not move. And we got some live rounds over our head, so you got to hear
the snap of
what live rounds sounded like.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he was asking, how far above your heads do you think we were shooting? And he was like, oh man, it sounded like it was inches away. It was 3 feet over your heads, right? But still, just to be able to hear that. So, that normal device, you just never, unless you actually go out and point that gun at a target and pull the trigger, you may freeze up when the time comes. You might not be able
hunting. Yeah, starting in my 30s, and it's like the first time I got crosshairs on an animal.
It's
like,
shake.
Why did I not pull the trigger? And it's like, fear, nerves, the anticipation, so much weighing on you.
I fear the biggest part of all of it would be understanding the threat fast enough to react properly.
Yeah.
In recognizing the threat that is
and
has the thin blue line deteriorated enough to where this is right.
Exactly. Knowing whether you're within your legal and moral rights.
And that's where the moral rights really kind of comes into. I'd rather
question the legality later, follow the morality now.
Yeah. And that's another subject is when is deadly force authorized, right? And if you are going to carry a firearm, you need to know that. What is authorized deadly force, and we're not going to get into that right now necessarily, but also, like you said too, am I going to kill somebody just because I'm legally justified? I don't want to ever kill anybody. So if somebody's like, hey, give me your wallet, I'm going to stab you, like
burn them down.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
It's one less drug addict tomorrow.
Okay. But it's like, hey, take the wallet, right? I don't have a psychological, and it was interesting because I got a question here talking about, this is Rescue Rob. He was a survival instructor in the Air Force, and it was on my podcast a while back, but he was talking about some of the stuff that we're talking about here. And he said that talking about your neighbors and your moral code, he said that in everyday life, someone stealing food from you is probably nothing more than an annoyance, but in a survival situation, it could mean starvation for you or a member of your family. How you deal with the situation will or can drastically change depending on the current circumstances. And in realizing and preparing for it now could cause some serious psychological issues for you later, such as guilt or self-doubt, depression. So thinking about those things, like you said, Jordan, right now is when would I use deadly force and how to defend my family? And I think about that a lot, and I know when I would.
I think something that helps, because when you're in a situation like that, you're going to have a lot running through your head, and it's going to stress you out, and your thought process is not going to be as clear as normal. Something I think that's very important about doing martial arts is you get used to being in violent or uncomfortable situations. Yep. And I think stress inoculation is really something where you develop understanding levels of direness. Like, to go with that person that's stealing food from you, yes, it is an annoyance now, but in a situation where the wheels are falling off, you really need to decide quickly how much of a threat this is that someone's taking your food away. Is this, once again, is it still a little bit of a nuisance, or is this starting to become a threat to your life? And when you're used to kind of performing under stressful situations, I feel it gives you, it just pumps the brakes a little bit for how fast information's coming into your head and the ability through which you can process it.
Yeah.
And I think putting yourself, whether it's a Training Northwest, whether it's a course like that, just as simple as putting sights on someone and pulling the trigger. If in your head...
They don't do that at Training Northwest.
Yeah, no. And I don't recommend it either.
No.
But putting yourself in that situation where you're like, all right, when do I flip it on and when do I flip it off? Going through martial arts, you really learn when to conserve and when to expel. I think that is something that carries over in that thought process of is stress inoculation and forcing yourself to make rapid decisions. And you see the videos of people like 2020, the riots and stuff, and people would start coming at someone and they'd completely freak out. Whereas, I'm not saying what he did was good or bad, but you look at like a Kyle Rittenhouse and he has a mob of people running at him. That kid did not freak out. He had been training with weapons and doing high stress shoots, and that's a stress inoculation, and that's performing under a dire consequence situation. Yeah. So I think one of the best things you can do is learn to do hobbies that put yourself in a very
stressful,
compromised
situation and perform under it.
Electric North Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
That's what he's talking about. Yeah. We did some combatives training with our guys, and we got some more coming up. But one of the scenarios we did was we had just a road rage incident where you're in the back, you're inside your car, and then the drill guy got out of his car and he came back and started screaming at you and yelling at you and escalated to different levels at different times. And it was amazing, guys that thought, they concealed carry and they shoot at the target range and all that, and they had their blue gun, and it's like, what do you do when somebody's screaming and yelling at you and getting in your face and all of a sudden starts attacking you? It's really eye-opening to think about, that actual stressful situation. So it's important.
Is that only through the department or is that with your crew?
How do we get into
that? That sounds fun. I want to do that.
That was some of the guys I train with.
All right, let us know.
We put on,
tap them out, Mike.
Put on some good stuff. So
that'd be
but see, that's the thing, right? That's why it's important to find a group of people, and then people with various skills. And we find guys that have, that are combat veterans, and guys that are, one of the guys actually goes to Electric North and stuff. And so, he's going to actually helps us with some of the combatives, but you meet people with different skills and then they can bring those skills in and train each other. So really important. It's huge.
I think stress inoculation is huge for training. And like you're saying, that's what training is.
That's a huge part of
stress inoculation.
Yeah. So bringing it back around to Minuteman, you can have the gear, but if you don't actually do some training and know how to use it, and like you said, put it on and get in your vehicle, and move around put your gear on that you would put on, and then move around your house, clear your own house.
Yeah.
Clear around your house, clear your property. What do you do if you hear that bump in the night? Oh, I got my bump in the night kit. Okay. There's a bump in the night. Put it on. What are you going to do now? Where if you have kids, where are your kids going to go? What's your wife going to do? So that's important.
Yeah. And I think we should start to kind of try to put a bow on it a little bit. But I want to kind of highlight just from the conversation, what has popped into my head is maybe a couple of the most important things you can do right now, which is we used to talk a lot about setting the conditions. I like setting yourself up for success. So rather than waiting until the balloon goes up and then reacting, what can you do right now to set conditions for your own success? And that goes to your community sort of outreach plan, getting to know your neighbors, getting to know your area. There are things you can be doing right now. You can be stocking up on canned food. You can be collecting a few extra first aid supplies, and you can be getting yourself trained. I wouldn't go break the bank in any one facet. Like you shouldn't go spend a ton of money on tactical equipment and no money on medical. Like, you know what I mean? A budget rifle and some ammunition, and then you need to get some medical, and you need to have some means of communications, and you need to have a communications plan with all your whether it's family or a friend group through the church or through the gym or what have you. You need to have your communications plan and your rally point. And you need to have all these, do as much as you can now to set the conditions for future success. Then for the moment when it all happens, you need to have the equipment that we've already talked about. And then you also need to have sort of the idea and the philosophy that the survival period is short term. And we don't want that to be long term. We want that to be as quick and fast as is absolutely possible, because we want to get back to rebuilding a thriving society. And that maybe is the most important thing, is that we need to leave something for our kids and grandkids. We need to get through the bullshit so that we can leave something good for the next generation. That's the most important thing. So now we're tools, knowledge, books, you know what I mean? Like just going to half price books, the used bookstore, and stocking up on, like, just look for interesting books on like how to make things or how to do
canning.
Yeah, exactly.
Sewing,
yeah.
Medical.
How to make a log cabin, how to plumb, you know. And if you are a tradesman of some sort, if you're a plumber, have plumbing tools. If you're an electrician, have electrical tools. Whatever. If you're a paramedic EMT, have medical equipment, and have a way that you can bring your expertise back into a new society.
That's right. And also remembering too that life is short, and who knows, you could have all the gear, all the beans, bullets, and Band-Aids, and all of a sudden you get taken out by some crazy guy with a bolt action rifle. Okay.
Goddamn right.
Possibly.
1022 didn't see it coming.
having your spiritual house in order. I'd like to encourage you from Project 223. For me is that what happens to you after you die? And so be thinking about that. And if you don't know,
you go to heaven and you get an orangutan and a
that
1022.
That might be something you really start looking into. And because life's short. So preparedness is good to be prepared here, but also for the eternity. So that's my focus. But
I want to, so we said earlier the AR is probably the best platform for a modern day Minuteman. With the gun bans,
10 or 15?
15. I think because of weight. Sure. I think because of weight. But because of gun laws in Washington State, people can't get ARs anymore. What do you think, as a modern day Minuteman with gun ban laws, is the best backup to get?
Other than a 1022.
We're not even going to.
Are you saying
we're not going to? Yeah, we're not going to even.
Bolt action 308 or 556 box magazine.
Yeah. Not even a shotgun with like
too short a range, not versatile.
Man, but with all these drones, have a shotgun.
You're not wrong. But that, again, we're back to situations. Who are we fighting? Are we a full societal breakdown, or are we fighting the government?
I just really like shotguns. Okay, you know
Fair
what
enough.
I mean.
Well, and I think that if you, so you're staying within the bounds of what you can
as a
legally,
current person living in Washington, this sparks some interest in them, and they're like, maybe I should become a modern day rifleman. But I can't get a rifle.
I would guess that if you build relationships and you start building a group of people that are like minded, that think like we do, you very more than likely would have somebody that would be able to hand you something that you could use when the time arose.
Yeah. Or if people are actually using AR-15s, there will be some laying around.
Most people that I know,
that's the reality.
Most people that I know that have AR-15s, they, if you were friends with them, you would not be shorthanded.
They have one.
Put it that way. Yes. They only have one. Yes.
Yeah, sorry. If you didn't think to buy one, then we're going to have all your extra food. Is what Brent's trying to say.
You can shine boots.
Once my
shining.
Carry my ammo. Op them.
It's going to suck when the apocalypse happens. My AR breaks and I've got my Lover 30-30.
Yeah.
I'm going to be a cowboy again.
Only one AR.
Actually,
yeah.
My one disdain.
Yeah. How many rounds are through that bolt carrier group, Mike?
Well, here's the thing, though. I also have bows. I have multiple archery bows.
Oh, let's go, Rambo.
Yeah. So
tactical bow.
Here we go. I was trying to wind this episode down. I'm gonna have to walk away.
You'll run out of bullets. I have
Did he
arrows.
Say bow or bow staff? What did you say?
It's hard.
That's right.
Oh my God. Brent's got his broadsword out. I'm calling it. Good night, bitches.